The cup is compostable and the lid is plastic. Where do I put them? Does the lid go in the blue bin? Is it PET? There's no compostable bin. And I'm solving the wrong problem. I should have brought my own cup. I just made a bad decision. We all face and make decisions every day and many times a day. How do you make decisions? Do you analyze the situation, trying to figure out what is wrong and why, and then find it hard to make a choice? Do you brainstorm, putting lots of ideas on the table, and then choose one to pursue? Do you come up with 2 or 3 solutions, make lists of pros and cons, and then choose the one with the best list? These are very common and sometimes effective strategies, but they all lack one essential thing: active options. Why options? Well, it's how we make decisions. Come up with an idea, an option, and then decide to do it. But options work better when they're active. And you make options active by making some, keeping them around, debating their merits, choosing a few, and doing this over and over and over again. Active options come in cycles: make, analyze, select, repeat. And it works better to do this with others. How do I know this? Well, in ways both personal and professional. A long time ago, I trained as an architect. I wasn't all that good at it. So proverbially, I became a teacher. My students tell me I was okay as a professor. But more important for me, an academic career gave me a lifetime to pursue the most fundamental lesson I learned in architecture school. To restate that lesson, active work with options can improve decision-making in all aspects of life. Now, decisions can go wrong in many ways, and active options can help in almost all. Let me give you a few examples, and I'm sure you know lots. A friend posts a sensitive message in a shared email thread. This really quickly blows up, and now everybody on the thread is exhausted, frustrated, polarized, and angry. So, clever you decides to try empathy and reason. You carefully craft a message that respects all views and argues from the facts. But no one can hear you from where they are. Now everyone's angry at you. A better path might have been to pause, invite a few key people to meet face-to-face over a meal. My mother, who would be 100 years old today, was right. A cup of tea always helps. You're buying some used furniture. You go online, and you find out that people seem to ask $200 for a dining room table. You find one you really like and offer $150 for it, and the seller a bit too eagerly accepts. Later, you find the seller was willing to part with it for $100. You fell victim to what is called the anchoring bias. You got your options from commonly available ones in the world. We might call this the manufacturer's suggested retail price bias. An engineering team is designing a rocket. They decide to join 2 parts of the rocket together with an O-ring. It's a circular piece of rubber. They neglect to look at all the ways that such a system can fail. The rocket launches. 73 seconds later, it blows up, killing all 7 people on board. This was the Challenger shuttle in 1986. There were better ways to do the job, and the team failed to explore them. Then the NASA managers made it way worse by ignoring the warnings of those who knew of the problem. I could go on a long time. In all cases, the actors had other options. All decision-making involves options, and active options are at the core of all creative work. Now let me tell you a personal story. Gwenda and I have been married for 36 good years. We're really, really different. Gwenda is empathic, analytic, and detail-oriented. I'm an idea connector, systems thinker, and tend to address details only as a last resort. Imagine us working together. Well, we do. We have designed houses and gardens, canoe trips, furniture, financial plans, and meals using what we call design space. A safe place where options are always welcome, has our razor-sharp comments on them. We keep the options on the table. So many times, a terrible option yesterday turns out to be the one today that gives us something new and fresh. And when we're done, we almost always have something far better than we could have imagined at the outset. And we celebrate with a good meal together, because this is not easy work in a marriage. But it does make us a great team. Now, these personal experiences are mirrored in the professions. The academic literature shows that designers work through what is called a dialogue with the situation, making options, standing back and letting the options speak back to you, choosing a few, and repeating over and over and over again. Designers use active options. But we all have to get our options out of our heads and into the world. A design space process is not enough. We need to see and share our work. No one can design in their heads. So how do people express options? Well, for centuries, people have written their ideas down on real physical paper. This continues today in sketching, both professional and amateur. Recently, shared computer tools like digital whiteboards offer some help, but not much yet. Paper remains primary. If you observe an experienced designer at work, you will almost always see a sketchbook immediately to hand. Now, I hope I've made 2 points here. Active options improve decision-making, and we've got to get our ideas out of our brains and into the world. Our education system suppresses both of these skills. Have you ever worked with a child on solving a problem? Well, when they were kids, our 2 sons would come up with lots of ways to proceed, some of them quite scary. But in school, they were taught that problems have single, correct solutions. And sadly, many seem to take this artificial construct and try to apply it out in the real, messy world. Now, I see a deeper suppression in our education system. In its focus on understanding the world. We spend a lot of time teaching analytic technique, and this is super important learning. But we largely ignore how people change their world. We largely ignore decision-making. And it gets worse. Our software systems are built by the overly analytic victims of our education system. The software industry mostly doesn't even realize that it is missing an important part of thinking. Now, I've spent many years studying options, studying decision-making, and making new tools for working with options on computers. I've mostly worked in the world of design and architecture because that is where I have some expertise. But I've learned a bunch of things along the way. Here's one of those things. We need to make, see, ponder, and choose the available options. We work with our whole selves. Our hands, our eyes, and our brain. Let me give you an example. But first, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Designers play. We spend a lot of time messing around with what look like doodles, like this one. This simple program does nothing more than make little tree-like drawings. Now, such doodles do have a purpose. They help us find our muse, our form making. They give us ideas. And with such a program, we can make many, many, many doodles, but we can only see one at a time. How about this? Now, it turns out that we can extract from such collections, and even ones much, much larger, very, very quickly the ones we're interested in. And once we've done that, though, we have to gather them so we can focus. We have to go from here to here. And we need new tools for working on the small number of options singly or together. Now, this act of going from many to a few is really, really important in active options. I'll give you another example. Still looks a bit doodly, but these are massing models. They're arrangements of simple shapes into a composition. Architects use these to figure out general patterns or approaches to solving the current problem. Now, we know we can pick out our models of interest very quickly if we can see them side by side. How about this? Kinda hard, isn't it? Don't laugh. This is the primary way that software does options today. Just watch someone equip a character with armor in a video game. Whew. Back to side by side. We know we can pick out the ones of interest. We have to focus and put them somewhere else so we can work with them. This conceptually simple act turns out to be quite difficult to support in a computer. Now, my research team of diverse people from all around the world has figured out a general approach to working with options on computers. We've partly implemented an architecture, but its ideas apply in many, many contexts. We call our system D-STAR, which not surprisingly stands for Design, Repeat. Now, I'm going to show you some features of D-STAR. But fair warning, it looks really different from paper. It's not sketching, although the two do essentially the same thing. They make options active. So here's the example. Another massing model, this one for a proposed development. It comprises 4 rectangular cuboids. Residential in blue, retail in yellow, commercial in red, and a public open space represented as a void. These are just 4 cuboids, but the model combines them in some clever ways to create spatial surprise. And even with such a simple model, we can approximately compute such things as capital cost, return on investment, energy use, solar radiation gain, and even quality of view. Now, we make tools to quickly make many options, either interactively or automatically. Tools to view options in different ways. The collection on the top is an array of images. Exactly the same collection is rendered below as what's called a parallel coordinates plot, where every option is a line through the plot, and the coordinates on the left are the size and location of the blocks, the inputs. The coordinates on the right are the outputs, energy use and quality of view. We create options to make collections, and we have many more designs for such collections than we've implemented so far. We can go from many to a few in every view. So here we've developed visual search over the parallel coordinates so we can, for example, get the options that have the best performance. And we have a set of options, we have a view for collecting a small set of options together so that we can review them in a group. Now, early studies with D-STAR show that it's effective at the core creative cycle of making options, reviewing them, choosing a few, and repeating in the active options cycle. It does look really different from paper. Different media have different possibilities. Now, active options aren't the only solution for sure. We make better decisions when we work collaboratively with people we trust. When we work in groups of wildly diverse people. A very good way to make a bad decision is to put a bunch of old white guys like me in a room. We need to have the right people in the room. The phrase, "nothing about us without us," applies to all decision making. Leave your ego at the door and honor the strengths and weaknesses of everyone in the team. Don't get attached to ideas. The most junior person in the room may have the idea that wins the day. Develop empathy for the problem and the people affected by it. They can tell us much about how our ideas might work, and they can also give us new options to activate. And be humble. Acknowledge that you don't fully understand a problem until you've come up with a bunch of bad ways to solve it. Now, a group with all of the above and the best of intentions can quickly stall if it does not use active options. It takes time and effort to become a good optioneer, but it pays off in better decisions now and better teams in the future. With active options, you really can hold an infinity of ideas in the palm of your hand. Thank you.